I'm standing in Judge Patricia Whitmore's courtroom on a Tuesday morning in September, watching my entire life get handed to a man who doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as me. 18 years of marriage, 18 years of sacrifice. And Terrence Blackwell, my husband, the father of my children, the man I trusted with every piece of my heart, is walking out of here with my $4.2 million home in Buckhead, full custody of our 2 teenagers, and my reputation in shreds. Mrs. Blackwell, the judge says, and I notice she doesn't call me by my maiden name even though that's what I asked for. Given the evidence presented regarding your gambling addiction and financial misconduct, this court has no choice but to rule in favor of Mr. Blackwell. My lawyer, some overworked public defender named Gerald who keeps checking his watch, doesn't even object. Meanwhile, Terrence's attorney, some slick shark in a $3,000 suit, is already packing up his briefcase like this is just another Tuesday for him. Which I guess it is. I look over at Terrence, and he won't even meet my eyes. He's sitting there in his navy suit, the one I bought him for his 40th birthday last year, and his face is blank. Completely blank. Like he's watching someone else's life fall apart. Not the woman who sat by his bedside when his mother died, who worked double shifts to help him start his consulting business, who carried his children and raised them while he traveled for work. This is a lie, I say, my voice shaking. Your Honor, I have never gambled a day in my life. I work for Piedmont Insurance. I'm a senior claims adjuster. They do background checks every year. They drug test us. Mrs. Blackwell, Judge Whitmore interrupts, holding up one hand. The evidence is quite clear. Bank statements showing large withdrawals. Testimony from multiple witnesses who saw you at the Hard Rock Casino. Credit card statements from online gambling sites. Your employer has already been notified and terminated your employment as of yesterday. The floor drops out from under me. What? I'm sorry, the judge says, but she doesn't sound sorry. She sounds tired. I'm also granting Mr. Blackwell's request for a restraining order. You are not to come within 500 feet of the family home or your children's schools. My children? The words come out as a whisper. Your Honor, please. Kendra is 16. Darnell is 14. They need their mother. According to their testimony, Mrs. Blackwell, they don't feel safe with you. The judge looks down at her papers. They expressed concern about your erratic behavior and fear that you might harm them or yourself. I turn to look at my children in the gallery. Kendra is staring at her phone, her long braids falling forward to hide her face. Darnell is looking right at me, but there's something in his eyes I've never seen before. Something cold, like he's looking at a stranger. Baby, I try to say to him, but my voice cracks. Baby, please. We're done here, Terrence's lawyer announces, standing up. My client has been more than generous in offering Mrs. Blackwell 30 days to vacate the premises and providing a small settlement for her relocation expenses. 30 days, relocation expenses. Like I'm a tenant being evicted, not a woman who spent nearly 2 decades building that home, that family, that life. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. The next 3 weeks are a blur. I'm staying at a Motel 6 off I-285, watching my savings disappear into daily rates and takeout food I can barely taste. My phone rings constantly. Bill collectors, my former employer's HR department demanding I return my laptop and badge. Attorneys from Terrence's side sending threatening letters. I stop answering after a while. My sister Candace calls every other day from Houston. Come stay with me, she keeps saying. You can't stay in that motel forever, Dee. It's not safe. But I can't move to Houston. My children are here. Even if I can't see them, even if they hate me for reasons I still don't understand, I can't leave Atlanta, not yet. The only person who still treats me like a human being is Pastor Vernon from Ebenezer Baptist, where I've been a member for 12 years. He stops by the motel one evening with a bag of groceries and a folder full of job listings. Sister Dolores, he says, sitting in the plastic chair by the window. "I won't pretend to know what's happening here, but I know you. I know your heart. And I know God doesn't make mistakes." "Then why does it feel like my whole life is one?" I ask him. He doesn't have an answer for that. Nobody does. On day 27, I get a call from an attorney in Greenfield, Ohio, someplace I've never heard of, population 8,000, middle of nowhere. "Ms. Washington," the attorney says, and it takes me a moment to remember that Washington is my maiden name, the name I haven't used since I was 23. "This is Howard Chen calling regarding your father's estate." My father, Walter Washington. Dead 3 months now, and I didn't even go to his funeral. Couldn't afford the plane ticket, and honestly, we hadn't spoken in 5 years, not since he told me Terrence was too smooth and that I should get a prenup. I'd been so angry at him for saying that. Told him he was judging Terrence before he even knew him. Turns out Daddy was right about a lot of things. "I'm sorry, Mr. Chen," I say. "I don't have money for probate fees or—" "Ms. Washington, your father's estate is quite straightforward. The house is paid off. There are no debts. As his only child, everything transfers directly to you. I just need you to come sign some papers and collect the keys." A house. In Ohio. Middle of nowhere. "How soon can I come?" I ask. 3 days later, I'm driving a U-Haul with everything I own, which isn't much anymore, through the rolling hills of southern Ohio. Greenfield is exactly what I pictured. One main street, a Walmart, a bunch of churches, and houses that probably haven't been painted since the Clinton administration. My father's house is at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by oak trees that are just starting to turn yellow and orange. It's small, a 2-bedroom ranch with vinyl siding that's seen better days. But it's mine. No Terrence. No lawyers. No judge telling me I'm not fit to live in my own home. I unlock the front door and step inside. It smells like old coffee and lemon pledge. And there's a thin layer of dust on everything. The furniture is exactly what I remember from my childhood, the same plaid sofa, the same wooden coffee table with the water ring from where Daddy always put his beer without a coaster, the same little TV that's probably older than my marriage. There's a note on the kitchen counter in Daddy's handwriting. "Dolores, everything you need is in the basement. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you before. I'm sorry for everything. Love, Daddy." The basement. I haven't thought about that basement in 30 years. When I was a kid, Daddy kept it locked, said it was full of old junk and I'd just hurt myself down there. I tried to sneak down once when I was 12, but the door was padlocked and he caught me before I even got the lock open. Didn't yell, didn't punish me. Just looked at me with these sad eyes and said, "Some things are better left alone, baby girl." Now I'm standing at that same door, and there's no padlock. Just a regular doorknob and 3 deadbolts. I turn the deadbolts one by one. They're well oiled, like someone's been using them recently. The door swings open, and there's a light switch right at the top of the stairs. I flip it on, and fluorescent lights flicker to life below. The stairs creak as I walk down. The basement is finished. Paneled walls, concrete floor, drop ceiling. Not the dusty storage space I expected. There's a desk with an old computer, a filing cabinet, and a large gun safe in the corner. A gun safe. My father was a librarian, worked at the Greenfield Public Library for 40 years, never owned a gun in his life, or so I thought. There's an envelope taped to the safe with my name on it. My hands are shaking as I open it. Inside is a key and a letter. The handwriting is Daddy's, but neater than usual, like he took his time with it. "Dolores, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I hope that means you're safe. I need you to open this safe. The combination is your birthday, 041572. Inside, you'll find documents that will explain everything. I wanted to tell you 1,000 times, but they said it was safer if you didn't know. They said ignorance was protection. I don't know if they were right, but I pray they were. Your mother didn't know either. She died thinking I was just Walter Washington, small-town librarian. Maybe that was a mercy. I'm sorry I can't explain this face to face. I'm sorry for all the secrets. But most of all, I'm sorry because I think they found us. And if they found me, they'll find you too. Everything you need to know is in the safe. Trust no one until you read everything. Not even family, not even friends. Especially not Terrence. I tried to warn you about him, baby girl. I tried. Love always, Daddy, or whatever name I'm supposed to use. My heart is pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears. I kneel down in front of the safe and enter the combination. 4/15/72. My birthday. April 15th, 1972. The safe opens. Inside are stacks of documents, several passports with my father's picture but different names, a handgun, and bundles of cash. Lots of cash. But what catches my attention is the folder on top, marked with a single word in red ink. WITSEC. Witness Protection. My father wasn't a librarian. Or he was, but that wasn't all he was. My hands are shaking as I open the first document. It's a U.S. Marshal Service memo dated 1985, 3 years before I was born. Subject, Walter Calabrese, now Walter Washington. Relocation approved. Subject provided testimony against the Moretti crime family, resulting in 17 convictions including acting boss Vincent Moretti. Subject and family relocated to Greenfield, Ohio under new identities. Monthly stipend approved. Contact to be maintained through Marshall Davidson only. Walter Calabrese. That's not my father's name. Except apparently it is. Or was. I keep reading, my mind racing. Document after document. Transcripts from trials. Photos of men in suits being led out of courthouses in handcuffs. News clippings about mob prosecutions. And then, toward the bottom of the stack, a file with a tab that makes my blood run cold. Moretti family, active threats, updated 2024. I open it and there's a photo clipped to the first page. It's recent, printed from someone's phone. A man and a woman standing outside a restaurant laughing. The woman has her hand on the man's arm, familiar and comfortable. The man is Terrence, my Terrence. The woman is someone I don't recognize, but there's a caption underneath. Angela Moretti, age 42, daughter of Vincent Moretti, deceased 2019, current head of Moretti family operations. Underneath the photo, there's a handwritten note from my father dated 4 months ago. Confirmed. Terrence Blackwell approached by Moretti family 2 years ago. They knew about Dolores through routine surveillance. They've been patient, building the trap slowly. The divorce, the fabricated evidence, the custody battle, it's all designed to isolate her, destroy her credibility, make her disappear without raising questions. They couldn't get to me directly without alerting the marshals, so they're getting to me through her. I tried to warn her, but she wouldn't listen. I tried to tell the marshals, but they said I had no proof, that I was paranoid. I'm running out of time. If you're reading this, Dee, I'm already dead. And they're coming for you next. The paper slips from my hands. Terrence, the man I loved for 18 years, the father of my children. He was working with the mob. He destroyed my life, took my children, my home, my career, not because he stopped loving me, but because he was paid to do it. Because some crime family wanted revenge on a man who put their boss in prison 40 years ago. I sit on the cold basement floor, surrounded by evidence of a life I never knew existed, and I realize 3 things. 1. Everything I thought I knew about my father was a lie. 2. Everything I thought I knew about my husband was a lie. And 3. If they killed my father and they're hunting me, then my children are in danger too. Because Kendra and Darnell are living with a man who works for the Moretti family. They're living with the enemy. I reach for my phone, but then I remember my father's warning. Trust no one, not even family, not even friends. The police won't believe me. I'm a woman who just lost everything in court, who's been branded as a gambling addict and unfit mother. I have no credibility, no resources, no allies. All I have is a basement full of secrets, a father's cryptic warning, and the terrible knowledge that the war I didn't know I was fighting has already cost me everything. But it's not over yet. I pick up the handgun from the safe, checking to see if it's loaded. It is. I don't know how to finish what my father started. I don't know how to take down a crime family or save my children from a man they think is protecting them. But I'm going to learn. Because Dolores Washington might have been an insurance adjuster from Atlanta who trusted the wrong man and lost everything. But I'm also the daughter of Walter Calabrese, the man who helped bring down the Moretti family once before, and apparently that makes me the biggest threat they never saw coming. I don't sleep that first night in Greenfield. I can't. I spend 14 hours in that basement, reading every document, every memo, every scrap of paper my father left behind. By the time the sun comes up, I know things I wish I didn't know. My real last name is Calabrese. My grandmother, my father's mother, was murdered in 1984 when the Moretti family figured out my father was cooperating with the FBI. They shot her in her own kitchen in Newark, New Jersey, left her there for my grandfather to find. That's what pushed Daddy to testify. That's what put Vincent Moretti and 16 other men behind bars. My mother died of cancer when I was 9, but according to these files, she never knew the truth. The marshals decided it was safer that way. Safer for her to think she'd married a quiet man who loved books and wanted a simple life in Ohio. Safer for me to grow up thinking I was just a regular kid in a regular town. But I wasn't regular. I was a loose end. A target they were waiting to use. There's a burner phone in the safe, taped to the inside of the door. It's charged, which means Daddy must have kept it plugged in, kept it ready. There's only one number programmed into it. No name, just a number with a 2002 area code. Washington, D.C. I stare at that phone for 20 minutes before I get the courage to call. It rings 4 times. Then a woman's voice, sharp and professional. "Who is this?" "My name is Dolores Washington," I say. "I think you knew my father as Walter Washington, or maybe you knew him as Walter Calabrese." Silence on the other end. Long enough that I think she's hung up. Then, "Where are you calling from?" "His house. In Greenfield. I found the phone in his safe." More silence. Then, "Stay there. Don't go anywhere. Don't call anyone else. I'll be there in 6 hours." She hangs up. I spend those 6 hours going through the rest of the documents. There are bank records showing payments to Terrence, wire transfers from shell companies that trace back to businesses the Moretti family owns. $20,000 a month for 3 years. $60,000 the month he filed for divorce. Another $100,000 the week the judge ruled in his favor. My husband sold me out for less than the price of a luxury car. There are surveillance photos, too. Terrence meeting with Angela Moretti at restaurants in Buckhead, at a hotel bar in Midtown, outside our house. Our house. The one I'm not allowed to go near anymore. And there are photos of my children. Kendra at her school. Darnell at soccer practice. Recent photos taken within the last month. Someone has been watching them. That's what makes my hands shake. Not the betrayal, not the money, not even the fact that my whole life was a lie. It's those photos of my babies, because whoever took them wasn't admiring their smile or their soccer skills. They were marking them, cataloging them, making sure they knew where to find them when the time came. There's a knock on the door at exactly 2:47 p.m. I check through the window first, my hand on the gun from the safe. It's a black woman, late 50s, wearing jeans and a blazer, looking around the property like she's memorizing every detail. I open the door with the chain still on. "Dolores Washington?" she asks. "Who are you?" "Deputy U.S. Marshal Rena Whitfield. I was your father's handler for 23 years. She holds up her badge, lets me see it. "Can I come in?" I let her in. Lock the door behind her. She walks through the house like she owns it, checking windows, closing curtains. Then she sees the open basement door. "You found everything. she says. It's not a question. Everything he left for me to find. She nods, walks down to the basement, and I follow. She stands in front of the open safe, looking at the scattered documents on the floor, and I see something in her face I didn't expect. Grief. Your father was a good man, she says quietly. One of the best witnesses I ever protected. Never complained, never broke protocol, never put himself at risk. He just wanted you to have a normal life. Then why is he dead? I ask. And don't tell me it was a heart attack because I read the coroner's report in that file. Potassium chloride injection. That's not a heart attack. That's murder. Before we continue, if this story resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next story. Marshall Whitfield sits down in my father's desk chair, suddenly looking exhausted. We couldn't prove it. The coroner in this county isn't exactly CSI level. He saw an old man with a history of high blood pressure and signed off on natural causes. By the time I heard about it and got here, Walter had already been cremated. You knew it was the Morettis. We suspected, but suspicion doesn't get arrest warrants. She looks at me. Your father called me 3 months before he died, said he thought they'd found him, said they were using your husband to get to you. I told him he was paranoid, that there was no evidence, that Terrence Blackwell had no known connections to organized crime. You were wrong. I was wrong, she admits, and Walter paid for my mistake. I hand her the file on Terrence. She flips through it, her jaw getting tighter with each page. This is good work, she says finally. Your father did this himself? Looks like it. He hired a private investigator, paid cash. There are receipts in the safe. The PI's name is in here? Yolanda Burke. Works out of Columbus. There's a phone number. Marshall Whitfield pulls out her phone, takes pictures of every document. This changes things. This is evidence of a conspiracy to commit fraud, witness tampering, possibly kidnapping if we can prove they coerced your children's testimony. And if we can connect Angela Moretti directly to your father's death... Can you get my children back? I interrupt. Can you prove they're in danger? She looks at me, and I see the answer in her eyes before she says it. Not immediately. The problem is, you have no legal standing right now. You've been declared unfit. You have a restraining order. If you try to contact your children, you go to jail, and then they're even more vulnerable. So what do I do? You let me contact the FBI. We open an investigation into the Moretti family's current operations. We build a case that proves Terrence was working for them, that the divorce and custody battle were orchestrated as part of a criminal conspiracy. Then we go back to court with evidence, overturn the ruling, and get your children somewhere safe. How long will that take? She doesn't answer, which is an answer. My children don't have that kind of time, I say. You see those surveillance photos? Someone is watching them. Someone is waiting for the right moment. The right moment for what? To finish what they started with my father. To eliminate the entire Calabrese bloodline. Marshall Whitfield stands up, starts pacing. If that's their plan, we need to move them into protective custody immediately. Based on what evidence? You said yourself you can't prove anything yet. I can make a case for imminent danger. No, I cut her off. You can't. Because the second you show up with U.S. Marshals and try to take custody of Terrence Blackwell's children, he'll know we found my father's files. He'll warn the Morettis. And they'll scatter like roaches when you turn on the lights. She stares at me. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we don't show our hand until we have something they can't run from. I pick up the file on Terrence, flip to a page I marked earlier. According to this, Terrence meets Angela Moretti every Thursday at 6 p.m. at a restaurant called Valenti's in Buckhead. Same table, same time, for the past 8 months. That's 2 days from now. You want to surveil them. I want to record them, get them on tape discussing the conspiracy, get Angela Moretti admitting they killed my father, get Terrence admitting he fabricated evidence against me. Then we have something that will hold up in court. Marshall Whitfield shakes her head. That's not how this works. I can't authorize civilian surveillance. I can't put you in danger like that. Then don't authorize it. I'll do it myself. Dolores, my name is Gianna, I interrupt. Gianna Calabrese. That's what it says on my original birth certificate in that safe. That's who I actually am. And Gianna Calabrese doesn't sit around waiting for the government to save her family. She studies me for a long moment. You remind me of your father. Is that a yes? It's a, I can't stop you, but I can make sure you don't get yourself killed. She pulls out her phone again. I have a contact in the FBI's Organized Crime Division. He owes me about 17 favors. Let me see what kind of equipment I can get my hands on. We spend the rest of the day planning. Marshal Whitfield makes calls, sends encrypted emails, pulls strings I didn't know existed. By evening, we have a surveillance kit, a pen camera, a recording device small enough to fit in a purse, and a transmitter that will send everything to Whitfield's laptop in real time. You understand the risk here, she says as she shows me how to use the equipment. If they catch you, if they suspect anything, they won't hesitate. The Moretti family doesn't leave witnesses. My father was a witness, I remind her. And they killed him anyway. So what exactly do I have to lose? She doesn't have an answer for that. That night, I drive to Atlanta. 3 hours south on I-75, my mind racing the whole way. I get a room at a Holiday Inn in Brookhaven, close enough to Buckhead, but not so close that I'll run into anyone I know. The restraining order says I can't come within 500 feet of my house or my children's schools. But it doesn't say anything about restaurants. Thursday morning, I do something I haven't done in months. I get my hair done. There's a salon in a strip mall near the hotel, and I walk in without an appointment. The stylist, a young woman named Tamika with goddess locks and a bright smile, takes one look at me and says, "Honey, when's the last time you took care of yourself?" "A while," I admit. She sits me in her chair, and for 2 hours, she works magic. Washes, conditions, trims, styles. When she's done, I barely recognize myself. I look like the woman I used to be before Terrence destroyed my life. Strong, put together, dangerous. "Whatever you're about to do," Tamika says as I pay, "you look ready for it." If she only knew. I spend the afternoon shopping. I need to look like I belong at Valenti's. Expensive Italian restaurant. Old money clientele. I find a dress at Nordstrom, black and simple. The kind that says I have better things to do than try too hard. Heels that make me 3 inches taller. A purse that costs more than I want to think about but has enough room for the recording equipment. At 5:30 p.m., I'm parked across the street from Valenti's, watching the entrance. The pen camera is clipped to my purse. The recording device is active. Marshal Whitfield is in a van 2 blocks away, monitoring everything. At 5:55, Terrence arrives. He's wearing a suit I've never seen before, driving a BMW I know we couldn't afford. Or I thought we couldn't afford. Turns out, mob money buys nice things. At 6:02, a black Mercedes pulls up. Angela Moretti steps out, and even from across the street, I can see the family resemblance to the photos in my father's files. Dark hair, sharp features, the kind of face that would be beautiful if it didn't look so cold. Terrence greets her like an old friend, kisses her cheek, holds the door for her. I wait 5 minutes, then I walk across the street and into Valenti's. The hostess smiles at me. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" "I'm meeting someone," I lie. "They should already be here." She nods, and I walk past her into the dining room. It's dimly lit, romantic, the kind of place where people celebrate anniversaries and close business deals. I scan the room and find them in the back corner, exactly where my father's surveillance notes said they'd be. I take a seat at the bar, angle my purse so the camera has a clear view of their table, and order a glass of wine I don't plan to drink. And I listen. The recording device picks up everything. Angela's voice sharp and businesslike. The old man's dead. The daughter's discredited. So why hasn't she disappeared yet? Terrence. She's in Ohio, some little town. She's not a threat. Angela. Your job was to isolate her, destroy her credibility, and make her go away. You've done 2 out of 3. I don't pay for partial work. She has no money, no support system, no legal recourse. She's a ghost. Ghosts have a way of coming back. Angela leans forward. The Calabrese family cost us everything. Walter testified against 17 made men. Do you know what that did to our operations? We've spent 40 years rebuilding what he destroyed, and now his daughter gets to live happily ever after in Ohio? What do you want me to do? I want you to finish the job. Take the kids on a vacation, somewhere remote. Make it look like an accident, all 3 of you. My hand freezes on my wine glass. You want me to kill my own kids? They're Calabrese blood. They're loose ends. And loose ends get tied up. Angela pulls out an envelope, slides it across the table. 200,000, half now, half when it's done. Consider it severance pay. Terrence stares at the envelope. For a moment, I think he's going to say no. I think maybe there's still some part of the man I married somewhere in there. Then he picks up the envelope. How much time do I have? He asks. Thanksgiving. Take them somewhere for the holiday. Mountains, maybe. Car accidents happen all the time in the mountains. They're planning to kill my children. They're planning to kill Kendra and Darnell and make it look like an accident. And Terrence, the man who held my hand in the delivery room, who coached Darnell's soccer team, who taught Kendra to drive, just agreed to murder his own kids for $200,000. I stand up from the bar, my legs shaking, and walk toward the bathroom. I make it into a stall before I throw up. Marshall Whitfield's voice comes through my earpiece. Dolores, are you okay? Your vitals are spiking. I can't answer. I'm trying not to scream. Dolores, I need you to get out of there. We have what we need. We have enough to arrest them both. Get out now. I flush the toilet, rinse my mouth, and when I look in the mirror, I don't see Dolores Washington anymore. I see Gianna Calabrese. I see my father's daughter. I see a woman who just heard her children's death sentence and has 8 weeks to stop it. I walk out of the bathroom, and as I pass their table, Angela Moretti looks up at me. Our eyes meet for just a second, and I see the exact moment she recognizes me. That's her, she says to Terrence, her voice carrying across the restaurant. That's Walter's daughter. Terrence turns, sees me, and his face goes white. I don't run. I stand there, looking at the man I married, the man who just agreed to murder our children, and I say the only thing that matters. I know everything. Then I walk out of Valenti's into the Atlanta night, knowing I just started a war I can't afford to lose. I make it to my car before I hear the shouting. Terrence bursts out of Valenti's, Angela right behind him, and for a second I think they're going to chase me down in the parking lot. But Marshall Whitfield's van pulls up between us, and 2 men in FBI windbreakers step out. Federal agents! One of them calls out. Nobody move! I don't wait to see what happens next. I get in my car and drive, my hands shaking so hard I can barely hold the steering wheel. Marshall Whitfield's voice comes through my earpiece. Head to the field office on Peachtree. We'll meet you there. You're safe, Dolores. We've got them. But I'm not thinking about safety. I'm thinking about Kendra and Darnell, alone in that house with a man who just agreed to kill them. I'm thinking about Thanksgiving, 8 weeks away, and mountains, and car accidents that aren't accidents. Where are my children? I ask into the earpiece. According to the tracker on Terrence's phone, they're at the house in Buckhead. We've got units on the way. He could call someone. He could have backup. The Morettis could. Dolores, breathe. We're handling it. Just get to the field office. I drive to the FBI building downtown, and by the time I get there, it's chaos. Agents everywhere, phones ringing, people shouting orders. Marshal Whitfield meets me at the door and pulls me into a conference room. "They're in custody," she says. "Terrence and Angela Moretti. We arrested them in the parking lot. The recording you got is ironclad. Conspiracy to commit murder, witness tampering, fraud. They're not getting out." "My children." "Safe. 2 agents picked them up from the house 20 minutes ago. They're on their way here now." I sink into a chair, and for the first time in months, I cry. Not quiet tears, but the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep, the kind that shakes your whole body. Marshal Whitfield doesn't say anything. She just pulls up a chair and sits with me until I can breathe again. "What happens now?" I ask finally. "Now we build a case. The U.S. Attorney is already drafting charges. Attempted murder, conspiracy, racketeering, witness intimidation. Angela Moretti is looking at 25 to life. Terrence is looking at 15 minimum. And my children? The custody ruling? Emergency motion filed an hour ago. Given the evidence of fraud and coercion, Judge Whitmore will have no choice but to reverse her decision. You'll have full custody by Monday." Just like that? Just like that. There's a knock on the door, and an agent pokes his head in. "Marshal, the kids are here." My heart stops. I haven't seen Kendra and Darnell in almost 2 months. Haven't been allowed within 500 feet of them. Haven't heard their voices except in my nightmares, when I replay Darnell's cold stare in that courtroom over and over. "Are you ready?" Marshal Whitfield asks. I don't know if I'm ready, but I nod anyway. The agent leads me down the hall to a waiting room. And there they are. Kendra sitting on a couch, her braids pulled back, looking scared and confused. Darnell next to her, his arms crossed, trying to look tough but failing. They look up when I walk in, and for a moment, nobody moves. "Mom?" Kendra's voice is small, uncertain. I cross the room and pull them both into my arms, holding them so tight I'm afraid I'll break them. Darnell tries to pull away at first, but then he stops fighting and just holds on. "I'm so sorry," Kendra whispers into my shoulder. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Dad said you were sick. He said you were dangerous. He made us say those things in court. He said if we didn't, you'd go to jail and we'd never see you again." "I know, baby, I know." "He said you stole money. He showed us bank statements. He said, none of it was real." I pull back so I can look at her. "Your father lied about everything, but that's over now. You're safe. We're all safe." Darnell finally speaks, his voice rough. "The agents said Dad tried to hurt us. They said he was working with criminals." I look at my son, at the fear in his eyes, and I make a decision. He's 14, old enough to know the truth, old enough to understand that sometimes the people you trust are the ones who betray you. "Your father was paid to destroy our family," I tell him, "by very bad people who wanted revenge on your grandfather. They used him to get to me. And they were planning to use both of you to finish the job." "To finish what job?" "To hurt me in the worst way possible." I don't tell him about the planned accident. Don't tell him that his father agreed to kill him. Some truths are too heavy for a 14-year-old boy to carry. Before we continue, quick question. What would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. The next 3 weeks are a whirlwind. Lawyers, depositions, court hearings. The U.S. Attorney's Office moves fast when they want to, and they want to make an example of the Moretti family. Angela Moretti is charged with conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and about 15 other counts. Terrence is charged with fraud, witness tampering, child endangerment, and conspiracy. The evidence is overwhelming. The recording from Valenti's, the bank records showing payments from Moretti shell companies, testimony from the private investigator my father hired. And then there's me, Walter Calabresi's daughter, the woman they tried to erase. Judge Patricia Whitmore calls an emergency hearing to address the custody case. I sit in the same courtroom where she took my children away, but this time I have a real lawyer. A shark named Diane Thornton who works for the U.S. Attorney's Office and doesn't take no for an answer. Your Honor? Diane begins, standing like she owns the courtroom. The evidence before this court shows that the original custody ruling was obtained through fraud, coercion, and criminal conspiracy. Mr. Blackwell fabricated evidence of gambling addiction. He coerced the minor children to testify against their mother under threat. He did all of this while working as a paid operative for the Moretti organized crime family. Judge Whitmore looks like she aged 10 years since the last hearing. I've reviewed the evidence, Ms. Thornton. The recording alone is damning, doesn't even begin to cover it. My client, Ms. Washington, or Calabrese as is her legal name, requests immediate reinstatement of full custody, expungement of all findings related to the fraudulent evidence, and restoration of her reputation and employment status. Terrence's lawyer, the slick shark in the expensive suit, tries to object, but Judge Whitmore cuts him off. Sit down, counselor. Your client is facing 20 years in federal prison. You don't get to object to anything. She turns to me, and I see something in her face I didn't see before. Shame. Ms. Calabrese, I owe you an apology. This court was deceived by fabricated evidence and false testimony. I should have been more thorough. I should have questioned the narrative presented to me. I failed you, and I failed your children. Your Honor, I start, but she holds up a hand. Please let me finish. It is the ruling of this court that all previous findings are vacated. Full custody is restored to you immediately. All restraining orders are dissolved. Furthermore, I am ordering Mr. Blackwell to surrender all marital assets, including the family home, to you. I am also recommending that the Georgia Bar investigate the attorney who represented Mr. Blackwell for potential ethical violations. The slick shark stands up, red-faced. Your Honor, you can't. I just did. This hearing is adjourned. I walk out of that courtroom with my head high, my children on either side of me, and for the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe. But the story doesn't end there. 2 days later, Marshall Whitfield calls me. Turn on the news. I flip on the TV, and there it is. Moretti crime family takedown. Federal agents raiding properties in Atlanta, New York, and New Jersey. Arrests all over the East Coast. And in the middle of it all, Angela Moretti in handcuffs, being led out of a restaurant by FBI agents. 18 arrests, Marshall Whitfield tells me over the phone. 3 decades of work, and we finally got them all. Your father's testimony in 1985 started this. Your recording in 2025 finished it. He'd be proud, I say softly. He would be. And Dolores? Your employer called. Piedmont Insurance wants you back. Full reinstatement, back pay, and a formal apology. I think about that for a moment. About going back to my old life, my old job, my old routine. And I realize I don't want that anymore. Tell them thank you, but no, I'm done with that life. What are you going to do? I'm going to stay in Greenfield, fix up my father's house, figure out who Gianna Calabrese is supposed to be. And your kids? I look over at Kendra and Darnell, unpacking boxes in what used to be my childhood bedroom. They decided to come to Ohio with me, said they needed to get away from Atlanta, from the memories, from the whispers. Kendra's enrolled in Greenfield High School. Darnell's trying out for the soccer team. They're going to be fine, I tell Marshall Whitfield. We all are. The trial happens in the spring. I testify for 4 hours, telling the jury everything about my father's life as Walter Calabrese, about the Moretti family's 40-year vendetta, about Terrence's betrayal, about the recording at Valenti's. When I describe hearing my children's death sentence, Kendra squeezes my hand from the gallery. Angela Moretti sits at the defense table, stone-faced, trying to look dignified. But I see the fear in her eyes. She knows how this ends. The jury deliberates for 3 hours. When they come back, the foreman stands and reads the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Angela Moretti gets 35 years. She'll die in prison, just like her father did. Terrence gets 23 years for his role in the conspiracy. When they lead him away in handcuffs, he tries to catch my eye, tries to say something. But I don't look at him. He's a stranger to me now. He always was. We sell the house in Buckhead. All $4.2 million goes into a trust for Kendra and Darnell's college funds. I don't want anything that came from that life. Instead, I fix up my father's house in Greenfield, paint the vinyl siding, replace the old windows, turn the basement into something other than a vault of secrets. Though I keep the safe, keep the files, keep the evidence of who my father really was. Pastor Vernon from Ebenezer Baptist comes to visit one Sunday. Says he drove all the way from Atlanta just to see how we're doing. We sit on the front porch, drinking sweet tea and watching the Ohio sunset. You ever think about coming back to Atlanta? He asks. Every day, I admit. But then I remember what that city cost me. What it almost cost my children. So you're staying here? This is where my father chose to build a life, where he chose to keep me safe, even if I didn't know I needed protecting. Seems right to honor that. Pastor Vernon nods, smiles. You know what I think? I think you found what you were supposed to find in that basement. Not just secrets, not just evidence, but strength. The kind of strength that runs in families, passed down from fathers to daughters. He's right. My father left me more than documents and warnings. He left me the truth about who I am, who we are. The Calabrese family, survivors, fighters, people who don't give up, even when everything is taken from us. Kendra graduates from Greenfield High School with honors 3 years later. She gives a speech at graduation about resilience, about overcoming betrayal, about learning that family isn't always who you're born to, but who stands by you when the world falls apart. She doesn't mention her father. Neither does Darnell. Darnell gets a soccer scholarship to Ohio State. On the day I drop him off at college, he hugs me tight and says, "Thank you for not giving up on us, even when we gave up on you." You didn't give up on me, I tell him. You were protecting yourselves the only way you knew how. That's not giving up, that's surviving. Some nights I go down to the basement and sit in my father's chair. I think about the life he left behind to keep me safe. The mother he lost to violence. The 40 years he spent looking over his shoulder, waiting for the day they'd find him. And I think about the letter he left me. Everything you need is in the basement. He was right. Everything I needed was there. Not just evidence and weapons and money, but the truth. The strength to fight back. The knowledge that I came from survivors. I'm 54 years old now. My children are grown. The Moretti family is destroyed. Terrence will be in prison until he's old and broken. And me? I'm Gianna Calabrese, daughter of Walter Calabrese, the man who brought down a crime family. Insurance adjuster turned mob fighter. Mother, grandmother, survivor. Every morning I wake up in the house my father built, in the town he chose, in the life he made possible. And every morning, I remember that I didn't just survive what they did to me. I won. That's all for today's story. If this touched your heart, please subscribe and share your own experiences below. We're all in this together.